So I joined the Army, I enlisted in the Army in 1995 with the sole intent of serving a few years and getting out and becoming a police officer. And then the Army gives you tests, and they give you a sense of what you can and can't do, jobs that you can have, and one of the jobs that was open to me was an Arabic linguist. January 2004. I got put in a car, and they said, you know, you're going to go to Abu Ghraib. And none of us knew really what Abu Ghraib was. The photos hadn't been published yet, and certainly no one knew what was going on there. I was aware that it was a large prison out in between Fallujah and Baghdad. I'd heard of the prison before, but certainly had no idea what I was getting myself into. The war in Iraq at that point was being painted as a dying insurgency. They weren't even using the word insurgency at this point. They were saying, you know, it was in its last throes, those sorts of things. It was a raging combat zone. In terms of the Sunni and the Shia, they were slaughtering each other at will. And these are the people that we were getting into the interrogation rooms, and we were still tasked with finding chemical weapons, but we were also tasked with then finding a way of what was going on in Iraq. Why are these people killing each other? Why aren't they kind of accepting our presence, and why aren't they happy that Saddam is gone? And so into that chaos, they threw people like me, and people like me made the horrific mistake of using what we were then calling enhanced interrogation techniques, which we all now know to be torture. That went on for about 3 months for me. I did it at Abu Ghraib, I did it at Fallujah, and then that was enough. And you know, on some level I say I did it on a very limited basis, but it was enough to involve myself in that process. The 10 years that followed have been kind of this desperate effort for me to put those pieces back together. Writing has certainly been part of it, counseling has been part of that, but also kind of just sort of processing out loud with my wife and close friends about how to do this. And one of the communities that I have tried to process with has been my church. It is Sunday. I'm scheduled to conduct my first interrogation. The Army has set up a room full of computers adjacent to the dining facility where soldiers can access email and internet. The Army calls this an internet cafe, but it is nothing more than a bunch of dusty desks and old Dell computers. I stand in line for 15 minutes of my internet time. It's just enough to download one email from my sister. My 4-year-old nephew had to be taken to the emergency room. He stuck a bean up his nose and couldn't blow it out. 30 miles away in Baghdad, a suicide bomber detonates a vehicle and kills more than 20 Iraqis. From the internet cafe, I walk to the ICE, which is the interrogation control element. There is a large expanse of macadam where Army helicopters land to deliver the prisoners. I watch a mushroom cloud rise above the walls of Abu Ghraib as ordnance disposal teams detonate an IED. I pass by the makeshift chapel. I have time for the opening hymn, and I sing, "Blessed be the tie that binds." I place the hymnal under the folding chair and reach for my body armor. I work the Velcro straps on the armor as slowly as possible so as not to disturb other worshipers, but the straps make a terrible tearing sound. On my way to the ICE, the interrogation control element, I stop and rest near the HESCO barriers near Camp Gansey, which are large anti-blast walls. I pray. I've not pursued prayer in some time, but as I sit in a prison in Iraq and prepare to interrogate prisoners of war, it seems appropriate to pray to God. Presbyterians are taught to pray with the Lord's Prayer in mind. We begin with praise, then move on to requests and confessions, before closing with words of thanks. My prayer outside Camp Gansey, which is a small camp of prisoners inside Abu Ghraib, my prayer ends quickly. As I move towards requests, I feel a terrible sense of shame. I cannot ask God to accompany me into an interrogation booth. In Scripture, God often works in prisons, but he is never on the side of the jailer. He is always on the side of the prisoner. The realization brings on a physical reaction. My hands shake, my face warms, I feel nauseated. The sensation is terrifying. Prayer in Iraq is dangerous. I'm beginning to realize that I'm not on God's path, I'm on my own.